Native American tribes along our shorelines. We've depended on marine life for millennia, and I think most of the tribes really want to take an active role in guiding how we restore our oceans.
This is the problem of our times. We have dumped 2 trillion tons of climate pollution into the environment, about 40 billion tons more last year. That's causing an awful lot of problems, including acidifying the oceans.
The primary impact we're seeing first is on shellfish. Ocean acidification kind of prevents the shellfish from forming the shells the way they should. And as the marine waters acidify more, the shellfish just aren't going to be able to produce their shells. Acidification is also having some impacts on other fisheries because of just how it affects the marine life that our salmon feed on. And with the salmon being our primary fishery here, that's a real threat to us.
So we've got this 40 billion ton problem. We keep doing all of these things, and we've based our civilization on fossil fuels, and we keep dumping 40 billion tons a year. The scary thing, though, is this 40 billion ton problem that looks, like a really huge obstacle isn't really what's the problem. The problem is the 2 trillion ton problem. We've already dumped all this climate pollution into the atmosphere. And when you look at it from that perspective, the 40 billion tons we do every year, when people talk about getting to net zero, that's just to stop making it worse. So CDR is activities that remove CO2 from the environment and store it durably, meaning for a geological sort of timescale, so 1,000-year plus durability. And it is actually cleaning up climate pollution, which we need to do in addition to stopping making more climate pollution. And according to the IPCC, we're going to need 10 or 20 billion tons of this just to get to net zero and stabilize the climate. Even though it's scary that we have to get really good at doing this, it's hopeful that it holds out the potential that we could raise our ambitions and actually start cleaning up the mess and make things better. This needs to become a $1 trillion industry. And so that is also a potentially exciting aspect of greenhouse gas removal. Is this is a brand new industry that we can see coming and we can build with intentionality. And it's rare that you can see something like this coming from so far away, to be honest. Usually with a brand new market, people will argue about whether it will get big because it depends on whether or not buyers like it. This isn't that. This has to get big. This has to get big if we want our grandchildren to have a pleasant place to live. Enhanced weathering is one of the most promising ways of doing carbon removal or carbon dioxide removal. It is one of Earth's natural mechanisms for moving carbon from the atmosphere and the biosphere back into the geosphere. And it refers to the reaction of alkaline rocks with carbonic acid. And the result is bicarbonate that ends up in the water table and eventually ends up in the ocean, which is where we have the connection to ocean acidification. This can be done in many different places. The one that gets the most attention right now is that if you spread this volcanic dust on crop fields, you get a boost in yields. So in addition to doing carbon dioxide removal, and in addition to improving the pH of the water that runs off, you're also getting, according to a variety of studies, on average a 13% increase in crop yields, which means this might be a carbon removal activity that we could do in large parts of the world primarily for food security, and the carbon removal would actually be a side benefit.
For those of us live in the West, we know that climate change is water change. Drought area has increased by 17%, and that's driven in large part by evaporative demand. So essentially warmer climates leading to higher rates of evaporation. So if you are receiving less surface water, then your coastal geography is changing. You're more vulnerable to impacts from storms, as well as rising sea levels. So we focus on building integrated projects with multiple climate and community co-benefits. And the thing that we begin with in all of our projects is brine. All right, so brine could be salt water, but in our case, it's really closely tied often to wastewater brine. So brine that is a reject product from something like desalination or from water recycling or other forms of wastewater treatment. So we are building a project right now in Southern California called Project Monarch. It's an integration with a water recycling facility in the Palmdale Water District. We're able to take that brine by integrating into this project and use it to capture carbon dioxide. And we also improve the amount of water recovery that they're able to do through their water treatment process. So by the end, I think we produce about 30% more water than they would if they were doing this alone. And all of that water goes back to replenishing one of their local reservoirs, where it's held until it's ready to be treated again and sent back out to homes.
People talk in terms of saving the planet, and I always want to be really clear that we're not saving the planet. The planet's going to be fine without us. This is really about saving human civilization is what it is.
It's our livelihood, it's our culture, it's part of our spirituality, the way we use our seafoods. And we just feel like we need to be a part of it. And we've been working these ecosystems longer than anybody and understand how the ecosystems work. So we have to figure out how we're going to counter the amount of carbon that's entering our oceans, just like we're trying to figure out how to counter the amount of carbon that's in our atmosphere.
We're saving ourselves, right? Either we fix this problem or the planet will fix us.
We don't really have a choice.